Yes, the tiles look like that. Whereas when you're going into stress and anxiety, you have real references that you can point to. So one is imaginary, one is real. This is why when you reach out to those fears, when you're moving above the line and you reach out, you do these different exercises where you reach out to this object of fear, this thing where your fear is coming from, it dissolves. It dissolves because it's not really there. And so in other words, you can step on those tiles. Those tiles are not electrified. So the cognitive dissonance when you're going above the upper limit is just fog, brain fog, it's confusion. It's, this is not supposed to be working. I'm supposed to be in pain. Why am I not in pain? Where's the pain coming from? Every day you're waking up thinking it's going to get worse, it's going to get worse. That actually slows down your progress. A more effective way of recognizing this is why you name it. You name it cognitive dissonance. And now you realize, oh, that's that cognitive dissonance again. Neuroplasticity is actually being done at that time. So neuroplasticity is the elimination of synapse between old neural pathways because that synapse fluid, that neurotransmitter has to be used in the new neural pathways. That's why creating a new habit is much better done by replacing the old habit rather than trying to break the old habit. Because when you try to break the old habit, you're dealing with changing neurons that could be wrapped with myelin. Whereas when you're replacing it and you layer on a new neural pathway, the neurotransmitter self-eliminates, for lack of a better term. It's called synaptogenesis. But that's what's happening as through this cognitive dissonance, which is why it's such a brain fog feeling. But if you go to bed, if you withhold judgment and say, you know what, it's time for me to stop working, let me go do something else, I'll go for a walk, do some exercise, just whatever, just do something, cook a meal, whatever your hobby is, paint the picture. Go to bed and wake up the next day, you'll find you have breakthroughs. You have breakthrough ideas because the neuroplasticity happened, the new neural pathways connected, and now you see things differently because that barrier is no longer there. Now you have freedom of action, and this is how that process works as you go above the line. On the other hand, when you're going down, you have stress and anxiety. You have real pictures. If I ask you, yeah, can you give, yeah, we've all seen homeless people. We've all seen people lose their jobs and never recover. We've all seen people lose their life savings. We've seen these things. You can Google it and you can find stories about it. But try to find stories about the person who was rising above the line and got shot because they crossed some imaginary barrier. Now, that's maybe a bad example. My point being is that one is false, evidence appearing real, the other one is real. But because we don't label them differently, it's very easy to think about them the same. They're not the same. This is the cognitive dissonance, and one foot in front of the other, keep doing the steps, mindfulness, paying attention, powerful present moment, one foot in front of the other, keeping perspective, working with somebody who can give you help you with perspective, whereas this one is different. You need to turn this around, there's some urgency. There's not a time element here per se, right? I can say it's going to take the time it takes. You may have heard me say it takes 3 to 9 months. That's this process up here of trying to work through this ebb and flow and ebb and flow and ebb and flow as we keep pushing through it. It's the same way a tree grows. And if you ever looked at a tree that's grown through the fence, the tree grows through the fence and then comes back together and keeps on growing on the other side. It's amazing. So now the fence is part of the tree. And that's this ebb and flow. You're going to run into obstacles, but you just keep going, you keep going. And just like that tree gets to the other side, we can get to the other side as well. On the other hand, where you have the stress and anxiety with that lower limit, this is real. You've actually have things you can point to. So here, there's no references. No references. Here, there's plenty of references. It doesn't mean that this is impossible. What it means is we need different strategies. So I started out in talking about the cells, or I've talked about it before, that the human cell, when it's in protective mode, which is what you would be in as a human as you're going down here, you're in protective mode. The configuration of a cell in protective mode is not able to go after nutrients and food. It's just the way it is. The configuration literally changes. This is why they say you can't create great plans from a place of despair. This is why gratitude is so important to get you back into more of a positive mode. So cognitive dissonance, because it's not real, you're not going into protective mode. You still have your capabilities. Here, you're going into protective mode, but maybe you don't have to be going into protective mode. Maybe all it is a bit of bad news that's not even real. All of us have had that happen where you get some bad news and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is it, it's over, and you find out it was a mistake. But yet you had all that pain and anxiety and it wasn't even real, but it didn't matter. Your depth of anxiety was still strong. So by reframing, there's some tools we'll talk about in the next one. There's some different things that we can do to help this turn happen, because that's really ideally what you want to have happen, is to have this turn and come back up. In fact, you want it, you don't want to wait that long. You want to catch it here, right? You want to get back up there. And then once you, the nice thing is once you cross up here above the line, this stuff is not happening anymore because you don't have those references.